Hello and welcome to today's autism discussion, Autism in the Media. I am sorry that I was not able to do this discussion last night due to circumstances beyond my control, but I thought I would go ahead and do it now, and then after that I would transfer it to YouTube, and then it would be on Facebook and YouTube, and then you can access this any time that you would like. The link to donate for suicide intervention is embedded with this video. So if you find this video helpful, please donate for suicide intervention because that's an important cause for us. I have a new microphone today, so that's pretty exciting, and hopefully it's my voice sounds better. The only real way to know is through singing. So I am living in a material world, and I am a material girl. You know I am living in a material world, and I am a material girl. I'm sure Emily enjoyed that quite immensely. We'll be talking today about autism in the media, which is a very important topic, something that is coming out more and more, where you are seeing characters who are labeled as autistic in television shows and movies, and it can be, well, I'm glad the microphone works. It's interesting to see how individuals with autism are portrayed in the media, and then the resulting that impact that it has on individuals and families. And so, and this is occurring at the request of Dr. Theineman. Feel free to share this video with anybody that you feel like would benefit from that. And message me with any questions that you may have. And you can send a message to me later if that works best for you. All right, so one of the more quintessential portrayals of autism in the media is found in the movie Rain Man. And oh my gosh, I loved that movie when I was a kid. I still like the movie. There's just something about it that is just very cool. And you have Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman at the height of their powers, and Dustin Hoffman's portrayals of an individual with autism is pretty amazing in my opinion. There are some lines and acting that is done in that movie that is spot on. One for sure is Dustin Hoffman's character in the movie. He's at the institution at the beginning, and Tom Cruise is meeting his brother, and the aide is explaining that people are not his first priority, and that is so spot on. It's not saying that individuals with autism can't form attachments, and many times they do, but sometimes people are just not their first priority. And that can be so different for many of us who fortunes wax and wane with the public opinions of others, that sometimes these individuals just don't care. I've had people actually be jealous of individuals with autism, that they aren't subjected to all the public pressure of how people respond. The importance for consistency is portrayed in the movie, of rituals. He has echolalia, which is not as common in older adults with autism. It's more prominent in children, but the character was obviously shown with a more severe case of autism. Definitely more severe than is shown in media nowadays. Now, there is one big thing that you see in the movie that just bothers people to a certain degree, and that is the fact that Raymond is portrayed as a savant. Now, I have to tell you, I work with individuals with autism all the time, and I don't think I've ever met a true savant. It is quite common for individuals with autism to have extremely good talents. And some of the thinking is that due to the fact that they are not so focused on social expectations, it frees their brains up for something else. And so my daughter is an expert at climbing and physical movement. My son could just memorize facts related to Pokemon and used to be animals or dinosaurs at an amazing level. But I wouldn't classify either of them as a savant. It is also interesting to note that there are many individuals with autism that have exceptional musical abilities, and that music can provide a great way for them to gain social interaction because they can do the music, then that allows them to participate in band and do other things that might lead to social interaction and be of benefit to the individual. But for somebody to have true savant-like abilities, where they can count cards in Vegas with Charlie Babbitt and rig the Las Vegas casino system, I haven't seen that level of savant abilities. It is incredibly rare amongst individuals with autism for the individual to be a savant. Yet it is very common for parents of autistic children for they to be asked is their child a savant. And I'm just saying it's unlikely. And if they are, believe me, the parents will tell you quickly because we are very proud of our children. So that is one of the bigger misconceptions that come out of that movie. One of the other things, and from the way Ray was at the start of the movie, to be able to deal with that level of disruption in his schedule and function as well as he does during the movie, it's kind of unlikely. But it's a movie, and in my opinion, Dustin Hoffman did do a lot to try to get himself into that mindset. The crooked neck that he would do when he was nervous, his lack of eye contact, all spot on. All right. So there is this other thing that goes on, and it gets on my nerves. I guess it is not going to negatively impact the world, but I just don't see the point of it. So one is we have what is called historical psychologists, and they try to go back and they try to figure out what individuals in history may or may not have had psychological disorders. And it's clear that there were individuals in history who had psychological disorders. Vincent van Gogh, great artist, but there was something going on, obviously. There have been people who tried to go back and try to figure out what individuals may have autism or Asperger's disorder. And that gets to be really difficult to figure out. For one, to make a true diagnosis of autism or Asperger's disorder, you would have to find that they had symptoms before the age of 3. How are you going to find that out through historical records? So I don't really donate too much mental energy trying to figure out which historical figures may or may not have had autism. It is very easy to figure out which ones had problems relating to others socially. And I have used that with my clients as a bridge to be like, okay, this individual struggled socially and look how successful they were. And that learning that information can be pretty easy to piece together. But trying to diagnose historical figures is it just, I don't think, a very helpful endeavor. And then the second thing is the individuals who try to diagnose fictional characters. Now, I keep this pretty simple. If they have the diagnosis in the show or the movie, then I accept in that universe they have that diagnosis. It is fiction, by the way. But trying to diagnose an individual with autism where the show doesn't say that he has autism, I don't think is appropriate. In my research, I was going through this, and I found a list of supposed fictional characters with autism, and I didn't buy the whole list. For one, they had Dr. House with autism. I don't think Dr. House had autism, and it never said that he had autism. I can't go there. One of the more other interesting ones that I found, that Aquaman and Mr. Fantastic have autism. I've read a lot of comics. I don't ever recall anything about Aquaman being autistic. The Aquaman in the newest movie was not autistic. Mr. Fantastic. Now, that would be an interesting direction to take that character, and a comic writer could take it that way at some point. But to this point, it has not happened. There's thoughts about, was Sherlock Holmes autistic? And, people can engage in that. That's fine. I definitely engage in a lot of discussions about fictional characters. But when it comes to whether or not they're autistic, if they say they're autistic in the show or movie, I accept. You rock too. I love me, Roger Conley. If they say in the show or movie they're autistic, I accept in this universe they're autistic. But they may or may not be in the real world. And if they don't say it, then I don't think about it anymore. All right. So, in looking at current trends in autistic individuals in media, one of the more popular options out there is The Good Doctor. And I've had a lot of people say, Josh, you got to watch The Good Doctor. And, I have mixed emotions on this. I'm like, but I'm a good doctor. What, is there somebody better than me? But the individual in that show has autism spectrum disorder. There's a young person in the show Parenthood that has autism. There's a show called Atypical where the individual has autism. And there was a character on Glee who had autism, which also brings us on one of the other fictional characters that they thought had autism, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. Now, I haven't seen The Big Bang Theory enough to know whether or not they say that he has autism or not. He's quirky. I don't know if he has autism in the show, because I haven't heard them if they've confirmed that or not. Now, amongst all the shows that I just listed, first of all, you will see in some of those shows, they will use the term Asperger's. And this leads to some misconceptions. So, in your interactions with people on the autism spectrum, you will find people with legitimate diagnoses of Asperger's disorder. And if they have previously been diagnosed with Asperger's disorder, then that diagnosis is still valid. However, there are no new diagnoses of Asperger's disorder. A few years ago, when the DSM-5 came into effect, it was all placed on the autism spectrum disorder. And we all have various thoughts on that. I'm not a fan, but but that's where we're at. And so there are individuals in this world who do not like the word autism, and they treat it like the wizarding world treats Voldemort. You can't say the word Voldemort, you can't say the word autism. I have no problem with the word autism. My children are autistic. They're still stinking cute. I still love them. So I have no problem saying the word. And in accordance with that, sometimes parents prefer that the child be labeled as having Asperger's disorder. Now, I can't change the diagnosis in the chart if it's a new diagnosis. And it doesn't even really change who the individual is. One of the big misconceptions of the show is how high functioning a lot of these individuals are. I work with individuals all up and down the spectrum, and there is such a wide variety. There's a wide variety in my family. My daughter is more severely autistic than my son. And yet they share a lot of the same genes, like over 99%. But yet there is a huge disparity between their symptom presentation. So this may lead to some people thinking, oh, well, if they're autistic, that just means they say funny things, but they can still end up becoming a doctor. That may or may not be true. It can lead to perceptions of parents that these individuals can get to certain levels that they may or may not get to. We all have to deal with hard realities as parents of autistic children, and we may have to accept the fact that our children might not grow up to become doctors, and that's okay. Currently, with current interventions, 1% of individuals with autism can get to the point where they live independently, work independently, and are in a relationship with a significant other. That's 1%. I work with the highest of the high functioning, and I know individuals with autism who are working, who live independently, and who have and who are married to a significant other. I actually know more people like that than I know savants. It still is tough, and it's still, for the vast majority of individuals, it's not going to happen. And that also can be okay. One of the big ones that is very tough for certain individuals to navigate is relationships. Relationships are very confusing. I know Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory is engaged, and I'm really happy. Bazinga, Sheldon, good for you. But that is a hard thing for many individuals with autism to navigate, to have the level of emotional understanding to be in a relationship. I know plenty of people who aren't diagnosed with a thing who don't have the emotional understanding to be in a relationship with anybody. You add on there a significant developmental disorder, and we got problems. When I'm dealing with a high-functioning individual, the two things that I focus on first is independent living and trying to obtain employment. No matter where the individual is at on the spectrum, we can always get more independent living, and the more independent they can be, the better. And then employment allows for the individual to stay busy, because these day programs are a joke, and it also allows them to earn their own money and buy the things they like, which, as part of the disorder, they get fixated on things, so they like buying the things they like, and they can do so with their own money. And yes, many have expressed an interest in relationships, and I've sat on the chair for 2 dissertations about sex education and autistic individuals, and I believe that is very important. But I will just tell you that relationships are difficult. It is the graduate school of social skills training to learn how to manage a relationship. Um, one of the I would love for them to show more individuals with autism at different stages of um, on the spectrum, and so not just the high functioning. The high functioning allows the writers to make certain jokes about the social awkwardness component, and I understand that, but it just would be good for society to be more aware of the different functioning levels that are out there in autism. And I also say that my wife is sitting on a gold mine because I would love for there to be a reality show about the Smith family and my children and what I do and my clients. I think people would pay a good money to see this, and this has been poo-pooed by my wife, and I think we need to get this going. People would learn a lot about autism. The other thing that I have a problem in a lot of these shows that show high functioning individuals with autism is they portray these individuals as rude and almost as like it's excusable. There was a character on Glee who had autism, and she insulted a girl, and then she said, "Oh, it's okay, I have autism." And everybody went along with it. It's not okay. When my son says something rude, he is corrected. He is taught to be polite and have good manners. My clients are taught to be polite and have good manners. Even my daughter is taught to say thank you. They may be more likely to do socially inappropriate behavior, but to tell you the truth, I get more thank yous from autistic kids than I do from typically developing kids, because autistic kids, they have been going to social skills training groups for a long time, so they have been taught. Now, and also in all the shows and the movies, it can reinforce stereotypes that I will tell you this, as somebody who works with individuals with autism all the time, if you have seen one child with autism, you have seen one child with autism. My son flaps, my daughter doesn't. Not everybody flaps. Actually, there's even variations in flappers, because there's angry flappers and happy flappers and bored flappers. My son is a happy flapper. I will tell you that when we were watching Captain America Civil War and Ant-Man turned into Giant Man, I thought the kid was going to take off. I mean, he just was. So I expect a lot of flapping during Endgame, and so, but that is not the same for every individual with autism. Now, by far, my favorite movie with a character with autism is the Temple Grandin HBO movie where Claire Danes plays Temple Grandin. Oh my goodness. I remember watching that one, and I would watch the movie, and then I would have to pause after 5 minutes to cry, and then I'd watch it again, and then I have to pause for another 5 minutes to cry. Claire Danes, a very talented actress, did a wonderful job in that movie. And one of the things that I think that movie did better than anything else I've ever seen in any of the other movies is it showed the severity level of Temple Grandin's autism. Because while she is has a doctorate degree and functions very well now, there was a struggle, and it showed the struggle that her mother went through, and that it was just not waking up and then she was all better. That there was that mother fought to get her daughter as far as she could. So I thought that was a really excellent portrayal of autism in media. Now, like most things, documentaries can be the best source of good information. And there's two that I really like that show the complete picture of autism. One is called Life Animated, and the other one is called Autism the Musical. And and those are very good, and you can learn a lot of information from that. Now, I do want to say this because there's a lot of different thoughts about this, and we need to be sensitive to everybody. Families who have children with autism may or may not want to watch TV shows and movies with individuals with autism. It may be too personal or too emotional for them. I really enjoyed the Temple Grandin movie, but I did cry a lot. There was a lot of crying. There are some shows like The Good Doctor. I've never seen an episode of The Good Doctor. And I know that I'm going to hear from people, oh, Josh, it's so good. I'm sure it's good. I have no problem that it's good. And I'm glad that you like it. But sometimes it can be too much. Sometimes after working with individuals with autism, sometimes after helping my children with autism, I need a break and I need to think about something else. As my wife can tell you, one of my favorite things to watch when I get home is home and garden television. Because at the end of the day, they end up with a house and the house looks nice. And I just need a happy ending for that day. Making a recommendation to a family, that is just fine, but they may or may not follow up with it. So Emily is asking if she can watch the Temple Grandin movie. Yes, I think you would love the Temple Grandin movie. I think you will cry like a baby. So throughout the whole movie, it's not like just sad at certain parts, but I will tell you, hon, because there are some things that Temple Grandin does that will remind you of our children, and things that from the mother's perspective that will really relate to you. So make sure you have the Kleenexes handy. Make sure that you don't have any mascara on during that time. But yes, I think you would really enjoy the movie. She says that's a nope. Not a big fan of the crying movies. You have to be in the right mood. I completely understand. And I will practice what I preach. We will not pressure her about the Temple Grandin movie. Now, one of the more interesting things that is going on in media right now is individuals with autism on various different levels of functioning are creating their own YouTube channels. And even myself with my YouTube channel, as a parent of autistic children, I'm sharing my thoughts. And I will tell you, this is the best source of information about autism. Because a writer, even the best writers in the world, would have a very hard time knowing what it really feels like to have autism. An actor like Dustin Hoffman spent a lot of time with individuals with autism to try to get it down. But does he really know? But listening to YouTube channels of individuals with autism, then you get a very accurate portrayal of what the experience is like for them. And a quick YouTube search would indicate individuals to go with on this. If my son Jared had a YouTube channel, he wouldn't talk much about autism. He would talk much about Pokemon, and would not really get to the autism awareness much, but you would learn a lot about autism just through watching his mannerisms. I will post this to YouTube today, and I hope this was helpful. Feel free to comment with any of your favorite portrayals of an individual with autism. And if you have any questions between now and the next webinar, let me know. The next webinar will be on Tuesday, the 23rd at 9 o'clock, and we are going to be talking, now this is a sad one, don't wear your mascara, regression. So what happens when they go backwards? Not fun. Hard times for families when that happens. So I will see you then, and feel free to send me any questions you might have on this or any other topics, and I will talk to you all later.